Welcome back. Now, tourism is among Kenya's top 3 foreign currency earners. By the close of last year, tourism earned Kenya 87.1 billion shillings. That's a 7% drop in earnings over the previous year. That marked a continuation in the decline in earnings from tourism. Now, this coincided with an 11% year-on-year decline in international tourist arrivals to slightly over 1.3 million tourists. Let's now take a look at some of the countries that Kenya draws the bulk of its tourists from. The United Kingdom, of course, ranks top, but between the year 2013 and 2014, the number of British nationals visiting Kenya dropped by nearly 22% to slightly over 117,000 tourists. That's, of course, largely owing to the UK's issuance of travel warnings to its nationals against Kenya due to concerns over insecurity. Now, the UK is followed by the United States of America, which saw an 18% drop in visitor numbers to Kenya to almost 95,000 tourists. And third came India, which saw a 9% drop in visitor numbers to nearly 55,000 visitors by the close of 2014. Quite some stark numbers coming through from Italy, which was ranked 4th in 2014, but the number of tourists from that country fell by 36% to slightly over 51,000 tourists. Now, interesting also, the number of tourists from Kenya's neighbor to the west, and that's Kenya's biggest trade partner, that's Uganda, also declined by 33% between the year 2013 and 2014. Now, of course, we are discussing all things tourism today with the CS in charge, and that's Phyllis Kandie. Thank you so much for joining us on the Business Center tonight. Now, we've seen the numbers there. Clearly, Kenya is quite key to Kenya's economy. Tourism is quite key to Kenya's economy. Give us a broad picture of where we are as far as the tourism industry is concerned.
Thank you so much for having me, Terian. I think we all know that the tourism sector has been facing a lot of challenges over the past few years. And yes, it's true the numbers have dropped. In fact, 2014 figures, international figures are at 1.4 million, which dropped by, on average, about 30%. However, we have a number of measures that we've taken as government to try to turn around the tourism sector, and we are confident that if we implement all these measures, by the end of the year we'd have made some milestones. Number one, you're aware that President Obama is coming in July, and we are planning to really ensure that we use this opportunity to showcase Kenya to the rest of the world. So we will have quite a number of journalists coming here, accompanying President Obama, and we're working on a program that to ensure that we take advantage of this visit. That's number one. The other thing that we've been doing is that we are positioning Kenya as a MICE destination. We are competing with South Africa on this. We are rated number 2 in Africa, but we want to position ourselves as number 1 in Africa. And so we are coming up with quite a number of infrastructure projects to promote MICE tourism. As you know, at KCC, we are improving our MICE facility there. At the Bomas of Kenya, we're building one of the biggest conference facilities and exhibition facilities in Africa. And right now, those projects are ongoing. Just to tell you how serious we are in terms of promoting Kenya as a MICE destination, we have quite a number of conferences between now and December. One of which, obviously, is the Global Entrepreneurship Summit that Obama is coming to join us and the rest of the world. With that, we have the WTO conference in December that is huge for this country. In between that, we have quite a number of conferences that we have won, you know, the rest of the world to come in. We have the global PR conference coming here. We also have what we call the ATA, This is the African Travel Conference that these are travel agents in the US selling Africa. And so they'll be coming to Kenya to hold a conference here. It was in Uganda last year, but we managed to convince them to hold it here. So that's huge for us. Yes. Bringing in travel agents from the US to come and sell Kenya here. Unfortunately, we also had bidded for the SCAL conference, but it was postponed to 2018, and that was to be held in Mombasa. Quite unfortunate, but so all this is geared up towards ensuring that we position our country in terms of MICE tourism.
Of course, you've talked about some of the measures that the country is taking to ensure our tourism sector is back on track. But I'm just wondering, in terms of travel advisories, is there any engagement that's currently going on with some of the countries that still have bans against us? And what is the nature of that engagement?
Yes, we continue to engage, the foreign embassies that are based here. We continue to engage foreign governments on, negative travel advisories. Obviously, our preferred situation is for these travel advisories to be lifted. And so, we try to ensure that we give them the correct information, so that when they issue these travel advisories, they don't generalize, because that really affects us. As you know, and we try to talk to them, most of Kenya is safe. And so, as we continue to engage, we see, some positive outcomes. If you saw the latest travel advisory from the US, it was, it was a step in the right direction, because they admitted that a lot of Americans do come to this country, to Kenya, and they are safe. They've been safe traveling in Kenya. So for us, that's a good endorsement. It's positive, and we'll continue to engage even the UK government to improve, at least on the travel advisory.
All right, and of course, the travel advisories have also had had a huge impact on the employment sector. Kenyans within the tourist circuits have been impacted so negatively, and I'm just wondering if you agree with some of the forecasts that have been given by researchers or institutions around when tourism will recover, and some of the figures floating around say Kenya's tourism will only recover by the year 2017. Do you agree with that prognosis?
Let me not agree or disagree. All what we need to do is really ensure that we have a program, and we have a program that not only government works on it, we work together with the private sector on this. As you know, I set up a task force that has already given us its report. And what we have been doing over the past few months is to ensure that, we have engaged the rest of government and parliament, so that there is a budget for us to implement that report. But we have also already implemented that report. One of which is we've engaged an international PR firm, to help us in terms of reversing the negative perceptions that is out there. And I think that is the big problem that we have. There are a lot of negative stories getting out of Kenya here, not only in terms of print media. The social media is huge, as you know, and it's a medium that our youth use, and quite a number of people use currently. And so that is already going on. I think you're already beginning to see some positive stories coming out of Kenya, and we try to ride on it, because there's a lot of good stories that we have in this country that is not getting out there. So for us, that's the biggest challenge, and it's the biggest mountain that we must climb as a country. And it's really what I say, and what I always keep saying, is that it's a responsibility of all of us. We need to tell the good stories about Kenya, and so that's one thing that we have done. We are also, coming up with quite a number of infrastructure projects, like I've talked about the MICE projects that we're coming up. As for the cost, we are looking at extending Malindi Airport and also extending the airport at the south coast to support tourism along the coast, because that's where a lot of jobs have been lost, and quite a number of hotels have closed. That's where the effect is felt. Mainly, the safari product has not suffered as much. I can say that. In fact, we're looking forward. The high season has just started, and we're beginning to see good numbers coming in. We are also, trying to, or rather, we made a decision in terms of our strategy to diversify our product, so that we don't just, look at, the beach and the safari product.
I'm glad you've mentioned that, Madam CS, diversification from sun and sand and the safari. But we've got, cultural, historical locations that we don't usually talk about. What is being done, to talk about the museums and all these other things that not only the outside tourists can go to, but also the local tourists who I believe the industry badly needs at this point?
Yes. It's good that you've mentioned local tourism, domestic tourism. That's our focus. The low-hanging fruit for us is domestic tourism, regional tourism, and Africa in general. And so we have a program to focus on domestic tourism. As you've seen, I think you've actually seen that over the past 6 months or 1 year, we've been focusing on cultural tourism. And you've seen a lot of cultural tourism events within the counties. And this is where the counties can come in and partner with us. You've seen that, I went to the Western Circuit to try to engage the counties to see how we can partner and showcase the counties as because counties have their own tourism attractions that are unique. And so that is a program that is coming up. In fact, for Nigeria, which is a huge market for us, we were waiting for elections to end so that we can continue with the implementing the MOU that we signed, a year ago.
Madam CS, if I may cut you short, I know you've talked a little bit about MICE, and I know most Kenyans might not probably understand what you mean. Do tell us a little bit about that, just so that we can get a full grasp of, the conference tourism opportunities that exist within that space.
Thank you so much. Let me elaborate. MICE is actually, building up facilities for meetings and events, if I can just put it very simply. We have not really focused on that product, tourism product, as a country, but we have so much potential, both in terms of we are a long-haul destination, just like South Africa, but we are nearer to Europe, if I can put it, than South Africa. We also, with attracting conferences to come to this country, the tourism sector can leverage on these conferences to sell the tourism product. And so for us, this country will benefit in twofold, because we'll be able to attract investors into this country, and at the same time, we'll be able to, the tourism sector will be able to sell, the holidays, and somebody can take 2-3 days for holidays within Kenya. So for us, that is, it will bring in sustainability into the tourism sector, because as you know, we have the high and the low seasons.
Talking about sustainability, Madam CS, I'm glad you mentioned Nigeria, because looking at the numbers, Nigeria, Ghana seem to be, gaining clout as part of the tourists who are coming into this country. Uganda as well, but that dipped. And I'm just interested in finding out, in terms of budget for marketing within Africa, outside of the EAC, what is being done about that?
It's interesting that you've just mentioned the budget. Today I was presenting my budget to the Finance Committee of Parliament. So we are in the process of finalizing the budgeting for next year, 2015-2016. We've been engaging, the rest of government, the cabinet and also Parliament. And we're hopeful that we'll get, a reasonable budget for us to be able to market, Africa and the region and domestic tourism,
We've seen figures of about 7 billion shillings. That's up by about 6 billion from the current 1.1, I think, in the current financial year. Are those some of the numbers that we're working with?
Let me not, confirm this. I think until the budget is read, next month, which is not far, I can come here and we start talking about the budget at that time. Yeah. But we are hopeful. We've put our case both to His Excellency the President and the rest of the Cabinet and Parliament, and we are hopeful. They know the challenges that the sector is facing, and we have a program that we know that we have convinced all those that we've managed to engage to ensure that we have enough support for us to implement the program that we have, so that we can turn around the sector and bring back the jobs.
Let's talk about marketing of EAC as a single tourism destination. Despite the fact that the concept does seem to widen, diversify the offers to tourists as well, are we not encouraging cannibalism? Because we are attracting the same kind of tourist who's probably looking for safari and the beaches, which the majority of our East African countries have. Given what's happening within the industry in Kenya, is this still the right thing to do?
Yes, looking at the big picture, East African community sells very well out there. It's a more convincing proposition to the world
than just Kenya alone.
Okay. So having said that, it's very important for us that we manage to really make sure that we make our visitors, it makes it easy for them to travel within the region. And by saying that, we're confident as Kenya with our product, meaning that we promoted the East African community single tourist visa. For East Africans within the 3 countries of Kenya, Rwanda and Uganda, they can travel with their identity card. And that for us does not only increase trade, but it also means that domestic tourism will increase, if you look at it from that point of view. And so, and in terms of the international visitor, we can showcase East Africa, we make it more attractive. And I think, regional integration is something that the world is looking at, and it's the one that will attract more investors into the region. And if they so choose to position their companies in Kenya, then we're saying we are open, for them to choose where they want to put their headquarters or their businesses. And so for us, a unified proposition is the way to go. I think it is good for us as Kenya. It's good for East Africa. And very important for us.
Let's talk about regional integration just a little bit more. How are we doing in regards to the diplomatic issues with Tanzania, especially with regard to the free movement of tourists between the 2 countries? I know the situation with Kenya Airways and the flight seems to have been silently resolved. But on the bigger picture, have the issues been dealt with, or how are they being dealt with?
We currently are organizing ourselves to have a bilateral with Tanzania. As you know, His Excellency the President did have a meeting in Angola with His Excellency the President of Tanzania, and the directive that was given was that we have a bilateral that will actually discuss not only tourism issues that we are having, and we would also discuss issues on under transport and also any non-tariff barriers that we may have. And so we are preparing to have that engagement, and I think we'll have positive outcomes after those engagements. Just to tell you that, we have these bilateral engagements all the time, because even though we sit down to resolve some of these emerging issues, you'll get others coming. And I think, it's very normal. We have businesses going on between our 2 countries, and it's possible that, issues will emerge. And so we'll continuously engage and resolve them, and sit again and resolve them. So I'm quite hopeful that we'll be able to resolve those issues during that bilateral.
All right. And as we wind up, Madam CS, you talked about perception and specifically mentioning the social media, and we've got quite a strong social media following. And I'd just like to hear your opinion, or perhaps, what you would like to tell Kenyans on Twitter, as they are called, or Kenyans on generally on social media, about the role a Kenyan plays about the general perception of Kenyans out there. Is there a way we should behave online? Are there things that we should not say? Because it's also a thin line, between saying the truth, and covering up, so to speak. What do you expect from Kenyans online?
We're just about to embark on a rebranding brand Kenya. And it's very, very important that we all understand that the narrative, is what you and me decide to either put it in writing or say, which is picked by any media, and so the world has this perception about us. So it's important what we write and what we say. I think we all have to contribute towards this. It's not just a campaign that will be carried by either government or the citizens, or it's all of us together. So that we are successful in that rebranding, I think we all need to be careful how we engage each other, how we say some of these things, especially in the social media, which is gaining a lot of traction. I was in the US last year trying to market Kenya, and I was being told they actually do their research before they come, and so they come across these messages. And they form their own opinion, which you don't want it to be negative. So I'm appealing to Kenyans that in terms of rebranding Kenya, we all should be part of this. And I think we need to, portray Kenya positively to the outside world.
All right. Thank you so much, Madam CS. We've been talking to Phyllis Kandie, the Cabinet Secretary in charge of the EAC, Commerce and Tourism, just letting us in on the government's agenda as far as tourism is concerned. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.